This is a beautiful canoe. I picked this up in West Jefferson, obviously before West Jefferson got flooded. Just actually a month before West Jefferson got flooded. My wife and I found this canoe, $300. And you know what's cool about this is it's a wood canoe with fiberglass coating. I just took it down a river with my son and a group of boys because we had promised them a canoeing trip. Helene kind of wrecked it, so we ended up taking them the next weekend, but it did fabulous. Hits the rapids fairly easy, even though it's a 14-footer. It's a pretty big, pretty wide canoe, but these things are tough. My plan is to redo the whole thing, put a new exterior on it, kind of resell it. It's all fiberglass and epoxy, so it should be pretty easy. Just got to sand it down, put a little elbow grease into it, clean up the wood. But this is a canoe that I'm hoping will last, you know, my kids and I a couple generations once I'm done fixing it up. I also had to redo this trailer. It was to the point where it was just metal sitting out in our field, no wood left on it at all. So when I rebuilt it, I reinforced it. I've got some 4x4 posts that are drilled down into the frame, and then I can bolt on these cross 4x4s to be able to carry multiple canoes and kayaks, so that we could take kids on trips and get them into the outdoors, get them doing something other than sitting on their cell phone and having their minds filled with garbage. And that's something that I wanted to talk to you guys about today, because somebody emailed me. We on our website, Unasa Trading Co., we actually have as a checkout option to add a shirt for Scout for $25. And they said, do you guys support Scouts? Does your Rural Youth Development Fund support scouting programs? Do you realize that, you know, Scouts has gone woke? And so I wanted to correct a few things with you guys. Number one, our Rural Youth Development Program, it is a program designed to help remove financial barriers and other obstacles for youth in rural areas to be able to experience outdoors, to be able to learn about agriculture, to be able to learn about self-preparedness, survival. And so our goal is to be able to remove financial barriers either for the actual organization and doing activities, or, you know, last year our primary goal was to fund kids being a part of the programs. And Scouts is actually one of the more expensive programs. It costs $200 a year just to be a Scout, you know, and then on top of that, you know, for a parent to join, it's another $90 for your uniform. I mean, it could be a very expensive thing, but it's always been a great program. There have been questions in the past, or questions recently, about the scouting program and changes that were made. And I'll be honest with you, in my personal opinion, and this is just my opinion, there was a deliberate attempt to destroy Scouts. But something that you will find is that Scouts itself was built off of Christian men and young men. And they don't walk away just because things get a little tough. And I don't think any of you should either. And I think that we need to start taking things back. And that's part of why we established the Rural Youth Development Fund. We only fund groups that we are aware of, that we know of their values, the way that they're running their programs, and we support those programs. Because what happened is the national organization had some issues several years back. They had suddenly thousands of lawsuits filed against them for sexual abuse. And I'm sure that there were some very legitimate claims in there, but they didn't investigate all the claims. What they did was they put it into a class action lawsuit, and they settled the lawsuit. For some of those victims, you know, I wonder, you know, just because the payout really, in my opinion, per person wasn't that much. But when you are thrown into a pool of a bunch of complaints, whether they're all valid or not, then you end up getting stuck with what the class action gets you. And most of that, again, goes to attorneys and everybody else. So it was a very bad time for Scouts, and obviously a very large shakeup. And they took money from a large foundation. I don't mention their name because I've been censored in the past for it. But the foundation that basically gave them funds back then, they haven't, from my knowledge, from what I've been able to see, haven't been taking funds from this foundation anymore. But they basically gave them funds as they were going through their restructuring. And with that came a lot of requirements, a lot of changes. You know, we want to see girls in Scouts. We want to see, you know, certain types of leaders being allowed to be in Scouts. And what they did was they said, okay, we'll allow this. You know, it's a Christian-based organization, but we'll allow people that aren't of, you know, of faith, as long as they can believe in something, you know, nature, whatever it is. But in doing this and making these requirements, we're also leaving it up to the local committees. So, you know, you have a committee who runs a pack and a troop in a local area. We're leaving it up to the committees to ultimately decide for themselves how they want to run their programs. And that's important because there's still a lot of churches that run programs. There are fire departments that run programs. There are a lot of groups that run programs. And so they have basically said, it's up to them. You know, we'll leave it open. So it's not necessarily what everybody thinks as much as it is, you know, kind of a fine, we'll allow this at the national level, but we're leaving it in the hands of the local committees. And I can't speak for every group across this country, but I know a lot of groups that have stuck to a lot of their traditional values. Now, when it comes to girls and Scouts, here are my thoughts on this. You know, number one, if the Girl Scouts, because everybody's always like, you know, Girl Scouts, they have their cookies, and Boy Scouts has their popcorn, right? First of all, it's really expensive popcorn. But no, so girls, if the Girl Scout program's not offering opportunities that girls are looking for, you know, I think that every boy and girl should have the opportunity to learn how to be self-prepared, to learn about the outdoors. At the Cub Scout level, I don't think it really matters to have them put together. And in fact, my wife is a Cub Master. She's one of the best I know. And I think that there is a natural relationship to kids under the age of, you know, 10 and under, that having that female presence as a leader and having, you know, the group working together, you know, it's not, it strengthens the program in many ways. When they get older, though, when they get to the 11 plus, what we used to call Boy Scouts, but now it's Scouting America because they changed their name because it's boys and girls. For the most part, they are separated troops. So a troop number could have a girls' troop and a boys' troop. So if it's Troop 100, it could have Troop 100 girls and Troop 100 boys. They're separate groups. They have separate leadership. And I think that's important because I believe that boys should learn how to be men from men, and girls should learn how to become women from women. But the overall program and structure, I think, is fantastic for both boys and girls. And when you do have brother-sister troops and they do activities together, you know, nobody else these days is teaching boys and girls how to commingle properly, you know, and they're actually being fed a whole bunch of other stuff that we wouldn't support a program that does feed that stuff to them. But I'm just saying there's a certain dynamic that can be created, and so I don't necessarily see that as a fallacy. I see that as an opportunity for growth and future strength within the program. And I think that as we've gotten past those tough times with groups like Scouts, it's definitely improving. You're starting to see a lot of great things going on within those groups. And for us, you know, we support FFA, we support 4-H, we want to support as many of these programs as we can. Some of them don't need a whole lot of support. Some of them need recruiting help. Our goal is to find a way to get kids in these programs. That's what the Rural Youth Development Fund is about. And it's only focused on rural communities because, you know, in the cities, they have resources. When they go out and they do a fundraiser, they have a lot of people. In a rural community, you don't have a lot of people. You don't have a lot of resources to fundraise. It's usually the same people supporting the same causes over and over and over again. And sometimes that can be challenging, especially, at times like now when a lot of communities are being hit with natural disasters and other things. But we still need to keep our kids occupied. We still need to keep them in educational programs, and we need to give them opportunities to get out. Another thing that nearly killed a lot of these programs, 4-H, FFA, Scouts, Trail Masters, Girl Scouts, you want to go across the board and name them all off, was COVID. A lot of kids stopped going because of COVID for a couple years, and the numbers in a lot of these groups dropped. A lot of accessibility to joining groups went away because the groups went away. If they didn't have the members, they went away. And so what we have been trying to do is bring kids back. We want our kids back. And it's not up to the government, it's not up to our school system to educate our kids and build values in our kids. It's up to us. Okay, so that's what the Rural Youth Development Program is all about. And we do support Scouts, and we are involved with Scouts. And we have, right now, we're trying to raise the funds to buy about 20 T-shirts, because what we have found is that with all of our efforts, we've paved the way for people in the past. And for some people, it has been great. We've had people join programs that have stuck with it. In other cases, sometimes it doesn't work out so well because they're not committed. Somebody else flipped the bill for them. And so now what we're trying to do is figure out ways where we can encourage recruitment, encourage kids to want to be a part of it. Kids like having, their attire, their T-shirts. They enjoy having good meeting locations. We're actually paying for the meeting location of a group right now, and we have to go up on that. We've been helping them pay a discounted rate, but our Rural Youth Development Fund only gets a few $100s a month in donations. So it's a difficult task, and it's difficult to spread it out amongst a lot of groups. So we've been very focused, but it's turning out to be a success, and we're hoping we can see it grow, and we're hoping we can see us put in a position where we can take care of more and more and more groups. I think that when you take the attitude of, this group has been taken over by DEI policies and it's turned woke and all these things, that's what they want you to do. They want you to walk away, and that's why it didn't work with Scouts, because good Christians don't walk away. They stick with what they're doing, and they navigate the situation, and then they make it better. And ultimately, the attempt, in my opinion, was to destroy the program, and it didn't work. It's there. It's strong as ever. Well, maybe not ever, but it's growing back, right? And I think that's important. And like I said, it's just my opinion that was the intent. And I do think that there are people out there who don't want us educating our kids in this stuff. They don't want our kids to be self-reliant. I think that there are groups out there, international groups, who see that as being a threat to what they want to accomplish. And so they're working on the next generation. And it bothers me that so many parents these days, they have a lot to say, they have a lot of, opinions, but they're not actually doing anything about it. They're not getting out there and getting back involved. That's how you take these things back. And by funding groups that we find to be admirable in what they're doing, we're helping to build back that character that everybody valued before. We're supporting and strengthening those that are doing things in a way that is positive, is good. But we have to do something for our youth. We are in a very odd time where electronics are raising our youth, and it's not a pretty picture if you think about what the future holds.